You know, I really love wrestling because you gotta think back at the era that I was born in. You know, the 80s, early 90s. So I'm a 90s child, basically, 'cause that's where I grew up watching most of the stuff. And the impressionable early years where it's very foggy for me of the 80s. So my grandfather and grandmother, which everybody knows who follows my channel, they are the only parents I ever known. And I kind of, and I owe everything to them because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have what I have today. Um, part of me will always be kitty and will keep my ears to the streets, and I will always be, that inner 10-year-old kid because I just love fun. Unfortunately, this world is very terrible, and sometimes I just can't bear with certain things that go on. The prejudices of me being in the chair, the people that handle people with disabilities and the way, basically, the system and everything got a long way to go. And people shouldn't be punished for what they have, what they are, or what they're suffering from. People are people, and it shouldn't define it that. And I just feel like if people are gonna do a type of job, then they should do it from the heart. But anyway, I got a wrestling story for you, but I just want to say that the reason why I'm so in love with wrestling is because I grew up with Popeye, I grew up with Garfield, I grew up with Inspector Gadget. I love cartoons, and and wrestling is like a human cartoon come to life, especially the WWE in the early days where um everybody had a goofy costume or an occupation. You had wrestling dentists, you had wrestling mounties, you had wrestling cops, you had wrestling clowns, you had wrestling plumbers, you had wrestling garbage men, you had wrestling hockey guys, you had guys with African American guys with colorful hair and birds. You had Virgil. You had $1 Million Man. You had Razor Ramon. You had Jake the Snake Roberts. All these people had jobs. Hell, I don't even have a job. I'm feeling like a bum. I'm not even on furlough. Anyway, no, I'm just joking. But I'm not joking about the part I have a job. I need one. But if YouTube wants to help me out, that's another thing. Um so it was a good time to be a kid, and the toys, I was too young to have the original LJNs. They're like big rubber ones. I own them now, but I didn't have them as a kid. I remember seeing them. I think my cousin Jeffrey had them. I only remember the dollar store, like fake ones, and then the thumb wrestlers, and I just remember my aunt Belinda. They changed companies ever so. It was LJN for 4 years, then LJN went under. Then they did the Hasbro series, which is when I started collecting. Then Hasbro didn't last because of a steroid scandal. Then they went on to Jakks Pacific, and Jakks Pacific lasted a long time. They lasted 14 years, and then Mattel took over in 2010. So you had Jakks Pacific that was doing figures from 1996 to 2010, and also you had, what else was there? You Hasbro was around from 1990 to 95, I would say 94, and I would say more 95. And then you had LJN, which was like from 85 to like 88, 89, no, 89. So, but Mattel's been going strong for like almost 11 years now, I believe. And I was very psyched that Mattel took the license, because Mattel represented something near and dear to me from my childhood, is He-Man. And they actually make wrestlers. It's a sub-line. The thing about Mattel and WWE, they have multiple toy lines. It's not just the one, just collect them all and stuff. They have multiple different types of figures based on the characters in the ring. Now, they have ones that actually look like He-Man, and they call Master of the WWE Universe, where they have weapons and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool. I have a couple of them. I would really like some more, being that I grew up with He-Man and stuff like that. And actually, you can switch the parts and put them on, because now they're re-releasing He-Man also. So you can play your He-Man figures with your WWE figures. And growing up like in the 80s and stuff and 90s, you see like certain people, like I basically met everybody that's still alive, and my main person to meet was Hulk Hogan. Unfortunately, I didn't meet Macho Man, I didn't meet Ultimate Warrior, but I met everybody else, like Bret Hart, Lex Luger, Hogan, Shawn Michaels, all those guys, Diesel, Razor Ramon, and the only ones like I didn't meet were like Austin and The Rock. But as I told you in a previous video, my uncle's so awesome that he was working in a club and he got me The Rock's autograph when he was a rookie. And I can't complain. I've seen Rock and Austin wrestle so many times in the Garden. There's one guy that started it all, that gave Hulk Hogan his break to win the WWE title in 1984, January 23rd, 1984 to be exact. Hulk Hogan faced the Iron Sheik to become the first ever world champion of WWF at the time. And it started the whole thing that made, the thing about the 80s is that if there was a movie involved, you got bed sheets. If there was a movie involved, you got a cereal. If there was a cartoon involved, you got all those things. You got the figures, you got the puzzles. And for some reason with the 80s, which I didn't really like because board games never really made sense to me. That's why I like the video games, because you're watching something and you're controlling it with your hands and it's live. But nowadays, like, I love my video games, but I'd rather be outside talking to people and socializing. Yeah, remember that, kids. So there's a guy by the name of Iron Sheik, and he's depicted in the Rock's Growing Up series, like Growing Pains. You see him there, but it's not really him, but the guy looks like him. I never took a picture because it really didn't matter.